Sega sure has been through a lot. From humble beginnings making arcade classics to creating a console so popular it took over a majority of the worldwide market share, to a sad but quick fall from grace. Despite the popularity and near inescapable presence of Sonic the Hedgehog and Atlas franchises like Persona, Sega isn't the household name it used to be in the 90s anymore. But that never stopped them from putting out classic video games left and right. Turns out, when you look beyond the mascot, there's an incredible breadth of games to pick from. Some fantastic, others experts. For a while, Sega was pretty solid about porting their older titles, all the way from the Master System and Genesis too. There's been a Sega collection on every console iteration you can imagine. If you want to play Outrun, Space Harrier, or Altered Beast, don't worry, there's a solution for every generation. So how about the games that have gone under the radar, considering Sega has been developing and publishing these things since the golden ages of arcades? There sure are a lot. We all know Sonic, sure, whatever, but you should play Dynamite Deca or Virtuon instead. So channel your inner SEGATA SANSHIROOOO. This is about the ones left behind. And yes, we're including games after the Dreamcast because one way or another, I'm gonna talk about the club.
Ryan, you're gonna get roofed.
Shut up, quadruped.
So yo, it's Austin, and there is absolutely no way we could talk about every forgotten, weird, and obscure Sega game from the last 40 years, but we're certainly gonna try. What's your favorite Sega game? Let me know down below. I know my editor is probably writing Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg and, me? Streets of Rage 2 probably, or Virtual On Oratorio Tangram, or Skies of Arcadia. There's just too many. So strap yourselves in, this is about to be the most me video on this channel. But before we do that, we need to go back a little further. Perhaps even further back, and with a little detour into the realm of Norse mythology. I'm talking about Loki, Thor, Odin, Freya, not my cat, with the latest event from today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. That's right, we back, mobile or PC, it's raid time. And they've got their biggest event to date, the Asgard Divide. It's running until November 22nd, and you'll be able to collect 4 Norse mythology inspired champions. If you log in for 7 days between now and the 23rd of October, you'll also get Loki the Deceiver for free. The other 3 you'll get from in-game activities, so make sure to knock those out. I really like Freya Fateweaver, cause I'm, like, little biased, but she's pretty dope looking and a good support. If you need shields, she's got them. I think most of y'all are familiar with Raid Shadow Legends. They're all over YouTube. They've sponsored the channel several times before, and they're continuing to introduce more and more champions, bosses, events, and things for you to do. It's always a perfect time to start. It's fun to team up with friends for intense PvE content and show off some of your favorite champs. Oh, and you gotta love that PvP. So if you haven't started playing Raid Shadow Legends yet, then why not? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code that's been on the top of the screen and make sure to use one of my links and you'll get a bunch of extra bonuses. You'll get a starter pack with Epic Champ Anax and another at level 15 with an Epic Fane. 2 words, Ratwoman. Click the link in the description, scan the QR code, and while you're at it, you can find me under Erupt Big Gamer or join my clan, the Goobs. Use my link or QR code for Raid today. Thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for the sponsor. But for now, we've got a pretty important mission to tackle. Sega games, tons of them, and I think it makes sense to start in their early days. Just not too early. I'm in my 30s, not 50s. It's easy to understate just how big the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive were. When it hit store shelves in the West, it was a full year before the Super Nintendo, and it had a unique library you couldn't find anywhere else, which makes it all the more funny that Sega has such a strong association with Sonic the Hedgehog. That original game didn't even come out until 1991, nearly 3 years into its lifespan. Never mind the Master System, which had been rolling with Alex Kidd since '86. There's an alternate universe where Mario vs. Alex Kidd is the biggest video game console war rivalry of all time, and frankly, it sucks. Rock, paper, scissors boss fights. Get out of here. The idea that Phantasy Star 2 and 3 came out prior to Final Fantasy 3, like actual Final Fantasy 3, puts a lot of things in perspective. Good early bangers from Sega back then were titles like Alien Storm, Shining in the Darkness, Wonder Boy and Monster World is one of my favorites of all time. That Wonder Boy series jumps all over the place with different developers, reskins, and Hudson's Adventure Island adaptation making everything confusing, but Monster World goes hard. Imagine Zelda 2, just with that fancy Genesis sound chip. Oh, it's beautiful. However, if we're talking early Genesis, old and mostly forgotten, I gotta bring up Alicia Dragoon. Pop up that cover. Yeah. Okay, now swap it to the Japanese one. Yeah. Both incredible. Alicia Dragoon is a game that sounds fake on paper. It's a platformer published by Sega outside of Japan, developed by Game Arts, who famously brought us the Lunars, Grandias, and Project Sylphid, and it was made in collaboration with Gainax, like the Japanese animation studio responsible for Evangelion, Nadia, and Gurren Lagann. Hence the way Alicia looks here. Not that you'd be able to tell if you bought a Western copy, considering you'd be looking at She-Ra.
How strange. I sense a feeling of sadness in that one.
Alicia Dragoon is a fun and simple concept. It plays a cool woman who can shoot lightning out of her hands and use one of 4 familiars to help her blow things up en masse. You level up both your lightning and buddies as the screen gets gradually more full of nonsense over time before it starts looking like a bullet hell. The Genesis Blast processing really showed its strengths on this one. There's so many projectiles flying around and getting shocked by your chain lightning, and it's an absolute thrill to play. Oh, I died, and it's one life, huh? It's a bit 1992 hard for sure. Well, that's okay, because at least I'm the Frog Master. Why is frog in quotations? Despite getting all sorts of praise from reviewers, Alicia Dragoon sold poorly. Everywhere. Not in Japan, not in America, not in the UK. No one wanted to buy Alicia Dragoon, and to them I say, you suck. Sega was no stranger to being a publisher back in this time. They wanted every game to come out on the Genesis or Master System, even if they had to do it themselves. Hence, Tazmania, a video game with 6 completely different versions and 3 different publishers, because I think we've all forgotten just how popular Taz the Tasmanian Devil was. Real 90s kids probably had at least one t-shirt with Taz on it, and I'm sure there are countless examples to pick from. I feel like I watched in real time as Taz was slowly replaced by Big Dog. Attitude adjustment, no charge. Tazmania for the Genesis is what it looks like. A side-scrolling platformer, one with a ridiculous amount of weird beep and boop sound effects. I like to imagine that this is what my parents saw video games as for the entirety of my childhood. Just an abrasive wall of noise and colors, and big animated pictures of Taz's dad holding a smoking pipe with a smug look on his face. Tazmania is based on that popular cartoon series and does what it does well. The controls take a sec to get used to, as the spinning mechanic really just yeets you forward, and it's pretty easy to fall. It's just also incredibly difficult in a no fun kind of way. And like I said, it does it well, like bombs hidden behind rocks. Yeah, that's cool. Anyways, you eventually struggle your way through a bunch of stages, find an egg that you're trying to steal to eat, where it hatches and decides to chase you down, because at the end of the day, it's Looney Tunes, baby. Although if we're talking best Looney Tune adjacent video games, I'm gonna have to go with Acme All-Stars. Mega Man Soccer, get out. Anyways, Jim Cummings' Taz sure was great. Who'd have thought a family sitcom centered around someone who just to make noises would work?
Okay, Taz, off the phone, please.
One of the other often forgotten about Sega things from this time are the last gen ports. I'm not too familiar with the Sega Master System or SG-1000, as they were before my time or not available in the States. However, that didn't stop Sega from creating backports like Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2, Streets of Rage 1 and 2, Columns, Castle of Illusion, and Altered Beast. The Streets of Rage port feels like a worse version of the original, way closer to a stereotypical NES beat-em-up than the goated Streets of Rage 2, but something like Sonic the Hedgehog is its own original thing. It's got unique levels, unique music done by Yuzo Koshiro, who rules. It's actually developed by his studio Ancient too. Technically, they are the same versions as the Game Gear ports too, which really just went to show how powerful that handheld was for like, what, 1991? A backlit screen 12 years before the Game Boy Advance? Say it ain't so. You just gotta swap out 6 AA batteries every 3 hours. It's fine. Sega! Sonic 2 for the Master System is dope though. I love how it starts in an underground zone as opposed to a fun green place. Also how the stage introduction sprites are just the Genesis ones with less color. Honestly, I just love that this backport concept happened at all. And you know there's someone out there that thinks the Master System version of Afterburner's the best thing ever. Hey, remember when Afterburner ended with a picture of Tom Cruise? How'd they get away with that? There's earnestly a ton of Genesis and Master System era releases that are slowly becoming becoming lost to time. Crusader of Centy, also known as Soleil in some regions, is a 16-bit Zelda clone by the people who brought you Ranger X. This one actually looped its way back into the mainstream recently as part of Nintendo Switch Online in 2023, but considering its absolutely generic cover, I wouldn't be surprised if people aren't familiar with it. It's pretty cool, actually. Besides Phantasy Star, Sega weren't hustling too many RPGs at the time, at least not many that came stateside. And this is a clear attempt to lean into the A Link to the Past, which is a hell of a good game to be inspired by. It puts a bit more emphasis on animal collection. You slowly lose the ability to talk to humans and start conversing with dogs, who prior to that say things like bow wow wow, yippee yo, yippee yay. You got George Clinton fans over at Atlas America. Crusader of Centy is decent. It's got a clear jank to it that other similar games don't. Sometimes hitboxes don't feel right. It's quirky in a memorable way and is absolutely one of the weird fun ones from the time. Quickly, one more Genesis game, and this one's a trip. Have you ever heard of Pulseman? If not, I understand. It never had a physical release in the States as it was a Sega Channel exclusive before then making its way to the Wii Virtual Console in 2009. Pulseman is the last video game Game Freak released before settling into the Pokemon mines. Heck, it's even got Ken Sugimori directing. I never got to play it growing up, but I'm so glad we can now. Equal parts Mega Man, Rocket Knight Adventures, and Sonic the Hedgehog, Pulseman uses electricity to zip and blast its way through stages where you basically do the same thing as Mega Man. The good robot boy combo fighting against the bad AI robot gang people. It's not quite in the treasure tier of Genesis classics like Alien Soldier or Dynamite Headdy, but it's fun and flashy in its own right. Look, I could go on all day with Sega Genesis classics. This is just me reliving the ages of 3 to 7. Rise Star, High Seas Havoc, Beyond Oasis all come to mind. Thankfully, these and a few of the games I mentioned made their way to the Nintendo Switch Online Genesis service, but those get easily lost in the sauce. Though, honestly, it's not really forgotten, but Gunstar Heroes, nothing comes close. Go play that right now.
Gunstar Heroes up!
By the way, we ain't getting out of here without a Sonic the Hedgehog section. And something I had to think a lot about. Sonic the Hedgehog really is one of the most popular and famous characters in media on this planet. Heck, those 2 live action films have grossed over $700 million. That's a lot. Soon we're gonna be looking at Shadow with a gun on the big screen, but way before that, he had a couple of obscure adventures that I think are slowly being forgotten. Case in point, Sonic Pinball Party. Hey, you should think twice before you open your mouth again. Whoa! How do we feel about pinball video games? Me? I like them, sometimes. Demon's Tilt is a classic, Rollers of the Realm is a good time, and any of the Pokemon pinballs hold up, especially that music. Also, let us never forget Space Cadet. I like Sonic Spinball too, the only official Saturday morning cartoon tie-in game. Just, maybe not the menu theme. What is that? Industrial? Sonic Pinball Party for the Game Boy Advance. This one's okay. Developed by Sonic Team and released in May of 2003 as a Target exclusive for some reason, Sonic Pinball Party is a collab of Sonic and other Sega franchises. You got Knights, you got Samba de Amigo, hell, we've even got a Chow Garden. Wait, what do you mean there's a portable Chow Garden game? Never mind, it's mid. There's a few mini games too, including a roulette thing where you have to shoot the ball into the bet holes, except the timing to get in is really tight and there's Chow blocking visibility? Why? Well, how about the pinball? It's also kind of mid. Screen-scrolling pinball games don't always work, but a little stage variety always helps. Unfortunately, besides the themes, the mix-ups just aren't there. Just the occasional notification to put the ball in the peeing hole. Dang, Sonic, he's always saying this. Sonic Pinball Party probably isn't talked about much for a reason, but I do think more people should talk about those Game Gear games. They're not all great. Labyrinth, Blast, and Drift are underwhelming to say the least. Nothing like a kart racer taking up a half of the screen on a small portable to begin with. However, the games that also released on the Master System, Sonic 1 and 2, are pretty good. I really liked Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble. Is that because it features Knack the Weasel or Fang the Sniper for you young'uns? Maybe? I mean, he looks sick, dude's got a hat. But also, for a Game Gear title where my expectations were already low, this was one of the closest to 16-bit, 8-bit Sonic releases out there. It's not the best, but it sure is fun. Just watch out for serial arsonist Knuckles. There's a real sicko part of me that wants to bring up Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. This thing just kind of flopped out on the Wii U right before its demise when people had already largely written off the series and console. Heck, for a little bit there, Rio 2016 was one of the rarest physical games on the Wii U. It's still going for nearly 60, and I'm convinced a grand total of 500 people played it. It's like, okay, I love me some arcadey sports titles, and Rio 2016 it just ain't it. There's also something to be said for some of the portable exclusive Sonics. Rush Adventure on the DS by Dimps is one of the last games spinning off from the excellent Sonic Advance games, none of which are too obscure. Not like everyone's favorite N-Gage exclusive, Sonic N. Pick up your taco phone and get into Sonic N. Oh, it's just Sonic Advance. Fine, let's talk about Knuckles Chaotix. Knuckles Chaotix is interesting. In the conversation of Sonic the Hedgehog video games, it's rarely brought up. Originally Sonic Crackers, a prototype for the Genesis, Chaotix is what I can only describe as Sega trying a Kirby. Nintendo seems to use Kirby as the poster child for random ideas that they have, which is why he has such a large variety of strange titles. Knuckles Chaotix is exactly that. It's what if Sonic platforming, but you had to use the momentum of two characters, and I think it does that pretty well. Is it good though? Maybe not, but it does reaffirm that Japan sure loves gambling. Crane Game character select, who we getting? Mighty the Armadillo? Nope. Heavy the Robot. He sucks, but I kinda love him. Chaotix is obviously a tech demo that got repurposed into a full game. It's Sega needing to put out something familiar on the 32X and just rolling with what they got. Granted, the music slaps, it looks like Sonic. I love the sheer amount of freaking colors on the screen, and it's hard for me to say no to this era. I also think that it could be a fun co-op experience, especially because the second player will actually cooperate with you. I just don't think that there's enough here for someone to enjoy for more than a session or two. Oh, also just play as Charmy the Bee. You can fly and you can just do this. Why even try? Vector, you're cool, but you suck.
Why do you think we're here? How else are we gonna make the rent?
Knuckles Chaotix has never been ported, never really been mentioned or talked about by fans except as an oddity. It's being slowly forgotten with time, and while that might be okay, it's still a cool thing that existed. It's just one that you had to buy a freaking Sega 32X for, meaning it wasn't worth it. Sega, what were y'all on back then?
Genesis 32X.
Welcome to the next level.
Alright, enough Sonic. No more. It's time to head over to a console that didn't even have a mainline Sonic title. Let's head on over to Planet Sega Saturn, where we're gonna meet everyone's favorite, SEGATA Sanshiro. Easily one of the greatest video game mascots of all time. TLDR, Sega did a parody of an old Kurosawa film, Sanshiro Sugata, and created this martial artist who would beat the crap out of people and force them to play the Sega Saturn. Didn't matter your age or gender, SEGATA Sanshiro was gonna make you do the thing. He was also played by the legendary Hiroshi Fujioka of Kamen Rider fame. This was the good stuff. SEGATA actually ended up getting his own video game near the end of the Saturn's lifespan too, SEGATA Sanshiro Shinken Yugi, which was a bizarre collection of minigames. I guess it's technically an adver game, one for a thing that you already needed the advertisement for that also didn't make it west at all, considering the Sega Saturn was a big fat failure in the States. Regardless, that Dragon Force ad was the best.
SEGATA Sanshiro, SEGATA Sanshiro, SEGATA.
But you know what we did get? A stall.
Huh?
Never heard of it? That's okay, the box didn't really do much to help that. They forgot to put the name of the game on the spine.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
Astral was a relatively early 2D Sega Saturn title that wasn't fully appreciated by the era. In the mid-90s, with the Saturn and PlayStation 1, games were slowly expected to become 3D showstoppers. With the PlayStation, they straight up wouldn't bring 2D platformers over. A shame too, because games like this were gorgeous. Astral is a fun, if bog, standard weird platformer that feels more like a showcase for what 32 bits could do with 2D as opposed to anything over the top. You play as Estelle, the thing that looks like Mighty the Armadillo on the English cover, and you run through platforming stages experiencing a weird story about goddesses and world breaking. Just a little world breaking. We got Antoas, Lita, Gerardo, Geist, and guess what? Every single one of these characters is voiced by the same person in English. Lanny Manella, who you might recognize as Rouge the Bad, and Nancy Drew in over 30 of those games. It's as you'd probably expect with a single person, not the most varied dub.
Estelle protected her fiercely, sometimes too fiercely.
Get out of the way.
If you're here to steal the bird, you have to get by me first.
Except when they splice in a Japanese laugh.
I can crush you like a bug. Beauty!
Estelle is pretty basic. He spends most of the time grabbing people and throwing them. You can down smash, you can stomp. You've also got your bird buddy who has a meter for a screen wiping attack. Mechanically, it's not much more than a Genesis game, but it is a real neat Saturn title that I think is worth a play. It's even got a cool ass anime opening. Oh, sorry, that's the English one. Here, one sec. Ah, yeah, that's better. The soundtrack in this game is pretty sick overall, as you can hear it in the background. Actually, if there's one thing to gush over Estelle for, it's the music. But I guess that makes sense considering the lead composer, Tatsuyoki Maeda, brought us, you know, all of these. Check it out. In the United States, Sega totally screwed over the Saturn. They rushed the translation and slammed it right out of the gate during their botched release. Cute Geist doing the Silver Surfer.
Whoa!
But if anything, Estelle is a perfect showcase of what 2D games could have become if they weren't tossed aside during the 5th generation of consoles. Not the best, but in my opinion, a cool hidden gem. This is one of the few Sega Saturn games I actually own physically, mostly because I got it for like $15 in 2011. And also, owning a Sega Saturn video game usually costs an arm and a leg. I'd still love to get a copy of Magic Knight Ray Earth, but not with those loan interest rates. I can, however, emulate, which allows me to check out several Saturn classics like the launch title Clockwork Knight. Oh, sorry, I wasn't ready for that. What happens when you take a side-scrolling platformer, make all of the playable characters small kids' toys, and put them in a musical? You get Toy Story. Put out a bit of that goofy juice into the mix, and it becomes Clockwork Knight, a video game that predates Toy Story by over a year. Pixar? Fraud alert? I think so. I mean, look at Sir Pepper here. He's basically Woody. Well, that nose is anyway. Clockwork Knight was one of 6 launch titles for the Sega Saturn in America, which also included Panzer Dragoon, Virtua Fighter, and Daytona USA. Kind of a bleak launch lineup in hindsight, isn't it? Well, Clockwork Knight was the only game bringing in the classic video game platforming action, and it's okay. Both it and the sequel are incredibly easy and beatable in an hour, but also have that look that screamed to me Sega Saturn video game. Both this and Shining Wisdom. Never ported, never referenced, stuck in the mid-90s on an old console. If you're gonna emulate some cool Saturn games that are way too freaking expensive, I'd recommend something like Dragon Force, Legend of Oasis, or Dynamite Deca instead. Dragon Force is one of those bangers Sega didn't have much faith in bringing to the West, so Working Designs had to do it. It's this cool real-time strategy RPG where you'd have a Dynasty Warriors amount of dudes fighting on the screen. This game is awesome. Legend of Oasis is the sequel to one of the best Genesis titles, Beyond Oasis. Reviewed harshly because once again, what are 2D graphics, but a solid follow-up to one of the best Zelda clones from the era. I don't know about that English cover though. What were they thinking with this? Yo, the 90s were wild. Speaking of radically changing something to appeal to a Western audience, Dynamite Deca, or as most of y'all probably know it, Die Hard Arcade, because no one knows what a Dynamite or Deca is, so let's just throw John McClane onto the cover and let him run and beat people up. This game freaking rules. So does the entire Dynamite series. Dynamite Cop for the Dreamcast is the pinnacle of video games, and you can't convince me otherwise. These are basically 3D beat-em-ups that go full in on the Hollywood B-action movie concept, and I cannot recommend them enough. In the arcade, Dynamite Deca is absolutely a quarter-devouring fiend, but playing this co-op with a friend is a blast. I just think it's funny they tossed the Die Hard license on it.
Thanks for the advice.
How about Saturn games that didn't come to the States? As time moves on, we've been getting more and more fan translations for some of the bigger Saturn JRPGs, the most notable being the original Sakura Taisen. A big one for me was a little title called Linkle Liver Story. A terrible name, I know, but a really neat top-down action RPG featuring everyone's favorite fantasy race, demi-humans. It was also by Nextech, who brought us Crusader of Centy, and was originally supposed to be a sequel to that. The Saturn has a ton of games like this, some of which still need fan translations, or me to just buy a copy of Rosetta Stone, but I didn't really need that for Super Tempo. Remember this one?
Tempo, check it out, you know he makes it funky.
No, we're on CD now. Yeah, 32X be gone. Welcome back, everyone's favorite mascot, Tempo, a grasshopper. Yeah, I don't really see it either. Dude looks more like a flea to me. Well, after Sega was hands-on developing and publishing the original, they said, y'all do it, and handed Tempo off to Red Company and MediaQuest, who brought it back for a final game, and it's pretty all right. Following a similar formula, we're going level to level doing the platforming, the occasional minigame, and genre swap. Collect a bunch of notes because we got a music motif, and then fight a beetle. Just make sure to get absolutely beef shredded. Why is Tempo's power up a cow print robe? You pick this thing up and you're in cow print underwear. Why? Is this a milk PSA? There's a lot of variety in Super Tempo. You're getting funky as both him and his butterfly girlfriend Katie, and if y'all know me, if there's one thing I love, it's variety. But here's the problem. Super Tempo decides to go the route of being an educational game. I had to look this up because I can't tell what exactly is going on, but there's a lot of cutscenes that are supposed to be little lectures or retellings of fairy tales. Specifically a thing on the town musicians of Berman. Tempo and Katie are here to teach the kids the things. The demographic for this is obviously not a 34-year-old man, but at the same time, this might be a little not for the kids. Yeah, okay then. Almond milk. Man, what is this game? I can't decide if I like Super Tempo or not, but I do know one thing. Making the small butterfly woman Centy transform into Jessica Rabbit was a choice. I got 2 words for you. Bug knockers. At the very least, we don't have to deal with another Americanized cover like the 32X original. Ugh, I hate it. I like this more. It's cute, it's Tempo, he's funky, and good to go. Let's hop forward a bit. The Dreamcast is actually one of my favorite consoles of all time, but I've already talked about a bunch of those in my Forgotten Dreamcast games video, so let's go a bit further. Life after a dream. When Sega pulled out of the console business, they went full in on the publisher side of things and started making games for everyone, new and old. It was crazy because you would actually have a different set of exclusives per console. Well, here's a few. Super Monkey Ball Adventure. You know what I like? Super Monkey Ball. Adventure here is not that. Developed by Traveler's Tales instead of Sega, Super Monkey Ball Adventure asks the question, what if this wacky arcade game was instead a traditional platformer? To which the answer is a 50 on Metacritic. This thing just doesn't work. There's enough guidance to figure out what you're supposed to do, but that also requires you listen to all the dialogue where you'll hear monkeys say one of 5 things over and over. Now, drag that out for 10 hours, and what you've got is a quick trip to the mute dimension. There's a handful of actual monkey ball levels here too, but the physics and speed are totally different. How does this work anyway? Isn't the point that the entire world is moving the monkey around? Suddenly on this island, you're the only one in a ball and the planet moves around you, but the others are totally fine? Who thought a fully dialogued out monkey ball game was a good idea? There's definitely potential here, but the tedious quest system and irritating main level hub design just didn't work. Also, no one wants to listen to this for multiple days. Hop Hopping over to the Wii, we got Mad World. Definitely underrepresented by today's standards considering it's stuck on that console, but it was pretty notorious for the time. Sega said, what if we make the most violent game possible, but the kicker is that everything is in black and white, and they did exactly that. It was praised to the high heavens when it came out, 9s all over the place, but that didn't help it sell more than 200,000 copies. I've never played its spiritual successor, Anarchy Reigns, but people keep telling me to. What do y'all think? Especially because my dumbass is just gonna buy a copy of The Club on Steam and find out it's totally unplayable due to Games for Windows Live, despite the fact that they're still selling it. The Club was a joint effort between Sega and Bizarre Creations to make a gladiator bloodsport third-person shooter with a big emphasis on points. Rack up combos, keep the chains going, headshots for extra numbers. The developers were describing The Club as a racing game with guns, which sounds funny, but it makes sense when you realize those devs are most famous for Project Gotham Racing and Blur. I don't think The Club is bad at all, just a little hard to actually experience considering the whole Games for Windows Live thing. Blood Will Tell Dororo. Never heard of this? Well, I got one word for ya. Oh, sorry, let me try again. Blood Will Tell Dororo is Sega's adaptation of Tezuka Osamu's Dororo, something that's been adapted several times since I was a kid. It's about a small child thief named Dororo and a supremely messed up ronin named Hyakimaru who had his body stolen away by fiends, so he's gotta fight to get it back. I'll find the fiend who stole my butthole if it's the last thing I do. Blood Will Tell is a proper action title, pretty M-rated, and something that I think totally went under the radar. You go through these stages killing the 48 different fiends that stole your bits, while occasionally swapping to Dororo for lesser interesting segments. Combat is a lot of fun though. You've got your 2 sword arms, you can shoot rockets out of your knees, you've got a machine gun arm, and different items. There's charge attacks into mashy QTEs, and it's all wrapped together by a well-made narrative. Reviews from the time had it hovering around 6s and 7s, which I think is fair because it is a bit janky. The combo strands are kind of basic, and the weapon leveling system provides an interesting twist. You just have to fork over around $330 US for a complete copy. What? Blood Will Tell is one of the rarest PlayStation 2 games in the United States, which is wild. It is not worth playing at that price, but I sure love me a little bit of that emulation. Looks nice too. Now, everyone say ah. Alrighty, y'all, we got one more game to talk about today, and it's something that I've been really interested in trying for a long time. With Sega, there's more than enough for an entire extra video, actually, but for now, let's slide back to the Dreamcast, and also to another continent. Big shout out to the fan translators of the world. Without y'all and the thing that you do for free, I wouldn't have gotten a chance to play Napple, Arsia, and Daydream. Thanks, Cargotten. Wouldn't have had this one without ya. Napple, Arsia, and Daydream is a video game that, in my opinion, could have been regarded as one of the Dreamcast's very best. And that's on a console that I'm already hugely biased for. Seriously, I like Time Stalkers. Nobody likes Time Stalkers. Napple is a platformer that's so unique, I can't really compare it to much. Imagine the World Hub from Sonic Adventure, the animal collection and crafting of your JRPGs like Pokemon, the platforming of Klonoa, and the whimsical feel of Spirited Away? That sounds like too much, right? Well, that's because, like I said, Napple, Arsia, and Daydream stands on its own. You play as Porch Arsia, a young girl who gets isekai'd 2000 style into the afterlife because a novice Grim Reaper called Stray Nap messed up and grabbed the wrong person. Porch is understandably pretty upset about this and is trying to find a way out. That means she's gonna run around through Purgatory, the Napple world, and restore the seasons to bring peace and happiness to those wandering souls. I'm gonna use the word whimsical again. It's perfect for this. Napple has the soundtrack by Yoko Kanno of Cowboy Bebop, Escaflowne, and Turn A Gundam fame, and she freaking killed it with this one. They use a full orchestra with real instrumentation, really using that CD audio quality to the max of its prowess. Except the crafting room song. That one's, listen for yourself. The more I look into Napple, the less real it seems. According to an old interview with Sega, the developer, Chime, put together a staff made primarily of women in order to create a feminine sensibility, and it really comes across in how things feel. It's also, at least with this translation patch, pretty funny as Porch is clearly annoyed at everything going on. The expressions she makes say everything. She's so mad, but also we got all kinds of fun freaks, like Mayor Frog Car. It's a frog in a car. car. Is he stuck there? Probably. His bedroom has a ramp with a house the size of a garage. Nappletail is a surprisingly beefy experience with a lot to do. Several of the townsfolk have quests for you, all while you're trying to make your way home by restoring the seasons and finding the 6 petals. The main town is filled with NPCs and little events to do and see, and it's an absolute blast to play. Although that gameplay is a bit limited. You create a bunch of scrimblows called Paffles who can be equipped to Arsia to do things, be they attacks or just little platforms to jump on. And that platforming's kind of basic, combat is very forgiving, and earnestly, it's not very challenging. The world, characters, and aesthetic do the heavy lifting. I was having a ton of fun playing this for the first time for this video, which makes it all the more upsetting that it never made it stateside, not even to Europe. Until the fan translation patch, Nappletail was Japan only. And to me, it's almost the quintessential Dreamcast video game. You look at this thing from every angle. This is one Dreamcast-ass Dreamcast game, and you should do yourself a favor and play it as soon as possible. It's definitely not for everyone. I can't see the resident Battle Royale enthusiast having too much fun with Nappletail, but surely there's someone in your life for which this will just hit the right spot. If anything, just go check out that soundtrack. It's incredible. No jokes here, no more funny, just good classic Sega vibes. So there you have it, a bunch of weird and forgotten Sega games in the bag, and now I've got a mission to sit down and play Nappletail like all the way. I'm gonna do it. There sure is a magic to discovering a new game on an older console. It's like a new dash of nostalgia because it feels familiar. It fits in with that time period, and there's no feeling quite like that. And considering there's still so many untranslated games out there, I have a feeling I'll come back to that feeling. If you liked today's video, you can check out the sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends, where you can scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to get a bunch of rewards. Or if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can head on over to the Patreon. Just $1 will get you into the community Discord, where we've been growing quite a bit recently. And I'm gonna start recording gameplay in there sometime soon, so you'll be able to sit down and watch me play Nappletail and be like, wow, what were y'all thinking? You can also buy a t-shirt over at the Pixel Empire, or just leave a subscription, a comment, or something vaguely SEO related so we can keep the channel growing and keep this rolling. Anyways, that was a lot of videos back to back, and I'm very tired, so I'm gonna go do exactly that. My own little daydream. I've been Austin, and catch me next time when we tackle maybe a couple more forgotten gems. Thank you so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Aaron Kwolek, Alfred Correa, Benna Oswald, Blackfoot Ferret, Blake Thomas, Charles Rosner, Cheeks, Chris Shelton, DX Buster, Dylan Snyder, Fragile Traveler, Hey Quiggles, Idlevice, J Roosh, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Kevin Zanowski, Platinum Rose, Pacha Bear, Randall Bentley, Rare Find It, Ryan Talbert, and Vox. Thank you all so much for the generous support. I just did the math. That's 170-ish minutes of content in 30 days, so I'm gonna take like a 3-day nap. I've been talking a little candidly about some like TCG lately, and I just read that they're making a Gundam one now, and I'm just like, wow, I can't hold all of this. Please help. While I have you here, what's a video you want to see me make? Let me know down in the comments. I'm always looking for more suggestions. Anyways, I'm gonna go sleep. Bye-bye.